All right, let's try this again. Hi, I'm Pam Fox at pamfox.org. Make sure I'm live. Okay, yes, I'm live. So hi, I'm Pam Fox at pamfox.org, and today's video is going to be a response to a question from Madeline Rose. She says, I have been doing the exercises for 1 week now. I've been on a plant-based diet for 4 months now, and now doing the FODMAP diet, but I can't get rid of the bloating. Can the hernia itself cause bloating? Okay, so I get asked this question a lot, and the answer is it's the other way around. So the hernia doesn't cause bloating. The bloating exacerbates the hernia, okay? And so for those of you who are taking my course, you know this is one of the first things that I address in my course because the bloating exacerbates the hernia. If you're trying to reverse a hiatal hernia, it's really important that you address your bloating, if that's a symptom that you have, first, bloating and constipation. So if you deal with bloating and you're trying to reverse your hiatal hernia, your focus and your priority needs to be on addressing your bloating first. And so that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. And yeah, you can still practice the exercises and master the ability to move the stomach down and work on strengthening your diaphragm. You can do them all at the same time. But if bloating and or constipation are your symptoms that you have regularly, you really have to make them a priority in terms of addressing those as part of the holistic, comprehensive protocol for reversing your hiatal hernia. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the different reasons we have bloating, so that you can kind of tune in and be like, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's me, if that's the case. And then I'm going to talk about the best ways, in my opinion, that we can address and eliminate bloating. So there are a variety of different reasons that we can have bloating. So let's talk about a few. One, if you have low stomach acid, that can result in bloating. And if you have low stomach acid, that can lead to delayed stomach emptying, which also results in bloating or can result in bloating. So if your food is getting broken down very slowly because of lack of adequate stomach acid, then you'll have delayed stomach emptying, which will promote a buildup of gas and then bloating. Also, if you have inadequate enzymes, so stomach acid, enzymes, if you have inadequate gut bacteria, or if you have gut dysbiosis, which means you don't have that wonderful diversification of great, healthy bacteria in your gut. So if you're missing some of those important, vital bacteria, again, that can lead to slowed stomach emptying, delayed digestion, which will result in bloating. You can also have leaky gut and food allergies or food intolerances. So leaky gut is basically when the lining of the gut becomes damaged and it becomes more permeable and things leak out, basically, and they get into places in the body where they're not supposed to be. The body detects foreign invaders and starts the immune response in those areas that can then cause damage elsewhere in the body. We refer to this as autoimmune disease. And leaky gut is almost always a result of antibiotic use. So when we take antibiotics, which are life-saving and can be a great thing, obviously, they don't just kill off the bad bacteria that's harming us, they kill off the good bacteria. So at a young age, if you're taking antibiotics, or at any age you're taking antibiotics, but particularly we see this in young children today, developing more and more food allergies. And we've also seen a huge increase in antibiotic use over the last 2 or 3 decades. I know I took a lot of antibiotics as a kid, and when my children were young, it's the first time I really heard of this idea that we need to be careful about antibiotic use and not just be taking antibiotics all the time. But my kids had antibiotics as well. And so some people bounce right back after antibiotic use and they rebuild those healthy bacteria. Other people have a really difficult time. of rebuilding the healthy bacteria. So, and they can also have, you know, the gut lining can become more permeable, it becomes injured, it becomes inflamed, and so all of this can lead to bloating. What else? There was one other thing. It'll come to me later. So we'll go ahead and move on to things that you can do to remedy your bloating. So in my opinion, the best thing you can do to remedy your bloating is focus on what you're eating, obviously. So eating a very healthy diet. And in my opinion, the healthiest diet is a whole foods plant-based diet. And so I always recommend that people focus on maybe a period of time. So maybe you're going to do maybe a 30-day challenge or even a 1-week challenge, whatever is realistic for you. And you're going to focus for that 1 week, for example, on eating a particular way to see if you get the results that you're looking for. So if you start to notice that the symptoms are subsiding during that week, then you'll know that you're onto something. You'll know that you're healing your gut. You know, if the bloating starts to subside, if some of the other symptoms start to subside, you'll know that you're healing your gut because you're eating this healthy diet. And so what is a whole foods plant-based diet? Well, it eliminates meat, dairy, and eggs. It eliminates junk food, ideally, if you're trying to heal. Eliminates alcohol. Obviously, you don't want to be smoking. But it eliminates, you know, these foods that are harder to digest and that digest very slowly. It eliminates foods that cause internal injury to the digestive tract, which results in inflammation. And so hopefully it will result in minimizing or eliminating bloating. Now, with that said, it's not always the case. So a whole foods plant-based diet doesn't always result in eliminating bloating. In fact, many people, not many, but some, I would say it's a smaller amount, but people do complain that they went on a whole foods plant-based diet and not only did their bloating not go away, it got worse. And so I want to talk about that. Oh, and that reminds me of the other reason we get bloating, and that's from infections like H. pylori in the gut, or if you have SIBO, which is a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So these are circumstances where you have bacteria either in places where they're not supposed to be. SIBO, for example, is where the bacteria in the colon goes back up in the small intestine, or it goes from the large intestine back into the small intestine where it does not belong. And you can have bloating as a response as a result of that. And so if that's the case for you, let's say, for example, you do have SIBO, you go on a plant-based diet and you notice your bloating gets even worse. So in these cases, what's happening is, again, going back to the healthy bacteria and that diversification of the good, plentiful gut bacteria that we need, that we should have, that we should normally and healthfully have in order to have normal and healthful digestion, good, strong, diverse bacteria. If you don't have that, you don't have the particular strains and species present in order to ideally digest your food, and then you've got the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth where the bacteria is in the wrong place, you can have increased bloating when you eat a high fiber diet. A high fiber diet is a whole foods plant-based diet, because on a whole foods plant-based diet, you're eating all plant foods, which are all fibrous. So now you're eating in these high doses of fibrous foods, and you don't have those, either you don't have those bacteria necessary, or you've got this bacterial overgrowth or infection, which leads to inflammation. And basically what's happening with that bloating is, you know, the bacteria, and you may have pathogens as well, like fungus and parasites, and all these guys eat, right? They eat the food that we give them, and then their byproduct is gas, which gives us bloating. So if you try a whole foods plant-based diet and you notice your bloating is not getting better, in fact it's getting worse, it could be either you just don't have the bacteria necessary to handle that increase of fiber, and so, you know, things like a probiotic may help. Eating fermented foods such as kimchi, sauerkraut, water kefir, kombucha. These things are very beneficial and helpful for some. But you may need to address an infection as well. And so, you know, obviously you could guess whether or not you have SIBO or H. pylori. It's better to get an official diagnosis and work with a health professional on these types of things. But usually the protocol and treatment will be antibiotics. There are natural alternatives to antibiotics. There's natural antibiotics that you could request or that you could research on your own. That's what I would do if I were in that circumstance. I would try those first. And there's the FODMAP diet, like Madeline Rose is on, which these conditions, SIBO and H. pylori, are treatable. They are reversible. They are curable. So that's the good news. You can heal your gut. You can heal your gut. You can create balance. You can create that harmony that needs to exist in order to have good, perfect, healthy, thriving digestion that is completely void of these digestive symptoms. You can do it. For some people, it's relatively easy. For some, it's as simple as going on a whole foods plant-based diet. And for others, you know, maybe all of that fiber, their body's just not used to it. Maybe they've been on a lot of different diets, you know, like low carbohydrate, high protein, high fat diets, and their system has just been put through the ringer. And now they're eating all this fiber, okay, and it may just take a little bit of time for the body to get used to. So maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months in order to get used to all of that fiber. So I would start maybe with a week, you know, again, based on what your logistics are, you know, your family, your finances. Start with a week, and if you notice some improvement on a whole foods plant-based diet, then maybe, you know, that will empower you to try another week. So, oh, that's cool. So here's a comment that says, my hiatal hernia appears to be gone. I do your exercise. I do your course daily. Oh, great. Thanks for the feedback. That's wonderful. Well, keep doing those diaphragm exercises daily to keep your diaphragm as healthy as possible. And that should keep that stomach from re-herniating in the future. That's the goal. You want to get the stomach down, but we want to keep it down. So keep your diaphragm strong. So the other thing I wanted to mention, for those of you with reflux, going on a whole foods plant-based diet might not be quite enough. The FODMAP diet would be in a more extreme version, but you also need to remember you have to eliminate the common trigger foods as well if you have reflux. So it does make it a little bit harder because you have to adapt all of your plant-based recipes then to not have, you know, vinegar or lemon or anything acidic. So, but you can do it. You can do it. There's tons of resources and information on the internet in terms of recipes available, and you can always modify and figure out foods that you really enjoy. And that's what I always say is the key to a whole foods plant-based diet in terms of really sticking to it for good, sticking to it for the rest of your life. In fact, I'm going to talk more about that in my next video, is creating a diet for yourself that does not feel like a diet. So living this lifestyle in terms of the food that you're eating and never feeling like you're on a diet. Because after all, anyone that's ever been on a diet before knows that when you tell yourself you can't have this, you want that. And so if you feel deprived, you're going to feel sorry for yourself. You're going to look at the other foods and think, oh man, I really want that other food. But if you're really happy and satisfied with whatever it is that you're eating and you never feel like you're on a diet, you will thrive and succeed on the diet that you're on, okay? And that certainly can be done on a whole foods plant-based diet. I can testify to that. I absolutely love the food that I eat. And my health just continues to get better and better and better. Even though in this last year I've put on about 15 pounds since we moved here to Astoria because I eat out way too much. So eating out on a plant-based diet can certainly be done, and I don't even find it challenging. I have a lot of great restaurants here in my area that have vegan options on the menu, but just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's healthy, and it doesn't mean you can't gain weight on that food, because typically at a restaurant it's going to be higher fat, right? Everything's cooked in oil. Anyway, yeah. With that said, oh, thanks guys. Hi, Paul. I appreciate that. Thanks for helping me spread the message. So yeah, it is really important to make bloating a priority if that is your symptom. Constipation as well. And the reason is because bloating and constipation, they both increase intragastric pressure, which pushes your stomach up against the hiatus and through the hiatus in the case of hiatal hernia. So you've got to focus on eliminating these two symptoms as part of the comprehensive protocol of reversing your hiatal hernia. So I hope that helps. Yeah, and again, there are a lot of resources online to help you with plant-based eating, and it's very enjoyable and it's not that hard. It is something new that you have to learn, and it can be intimidating at first because it seems like such an extreme diet, but it's highly enjoyable. And if you do start to get the healing results that you're looking for, that will really motivate you to stick to the diet. If you start to feel better, you start to have energy, maybe you have other conditions and symptoms like, joint pain or asthma or painful periods or whatever it is, and you start to notice those things improve while you're on the diet. Even though you go on the diet for your bloating, you start to notice these other things. You start to notice you feel better in general. Then that will really motivate you to want to stick to this diet as well. So yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope you have a lovely day.